Welcome to InsurTech Amplified Sideline interviews. My name is Teresa Blissing and I am here live today at InsurTech New York Spring Conference. And I will be interviewing some of the speakers right when they are coming off stage. So just like a football match where we interview the players right when they come off the field to get some first-hand insights from them. So yeah, stay tuned. Scott Ham, CEO of Pinpoint Predictive. That was a great keynote. Thank you so much for that. Do you have time to answer a few questions with me?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we just walk quickly to the main hall, because the next great panel is already starting here. Something that really resonated with me, what you said, was about how insurers are going, leaving consumers, exiting lines, and also something you said at the end about the whole ethics of insurance and like the role the industry plays for the whole good of society, and how this really is what the industry is for, right? So that is why we are in insurance, and at the end a really noble cause if you think about it, right? So if you could just explain a little bit more what you mentioned, how insights and data analytics can help insurers not having to leave these lines, not have to abandon customers, and be more ethical in terms of like inclusion, etc.
No, and thank you for picking that up. You're better at summarizing what I talked about. But it's really key to me. I mentioned in there that I'm an insurance veteran. I've been in insurance a long time. We make a promise that we're there to protect people and their dreams. And we have unfortunately had to exit geographies because of profitability. And the profitability comes from not really knowing enough about the individuals that we are insuring. If you knew more, you could have priced them differently. You could have underwritten them differently. But instead, we're using what I call legacy processes to determine this. And the only way then to fight our legacy processes is to increase rates. Regulators are starting to push back on rates. So the option, without this new kind of insights that we talked about, the option is leaving the geography. And I want to make sure we don't depersonalize it. When we leave a geography, we're leaving consumers that need that protection. We're also leaving agents who have a business to go sell products to protect people and their dreams. So it doesn't fit with what we're here for.
No, thank you so much for answering this. Just like a follow-up question, like in general, what do you think the industry moving forward? Because we do see, especially in the US, insurers leaving markets like Florida, like California, because of that. Like, what are the opportunities with more insights that insurers can be there and really fulfill their promise?
Sure. And there's, although the press shows those that are exiting, I will tell you there are carriers that want to go into those states as well. And those carriers are actually talking to folks like us about, if we go into this state X, we'll just say state X, what intelligence can you give us on consumers that will help us understand the likelihood of their claims, how many claims they make, the severity of them, the true cost, so that we can then take that, set our pricing correctly, market to the people that fit our risk appetite. But no matter where you are, if you leave California, everyone in California is not a bad risk. And so by getting this individualized intelligence, you're able to find those individuals and give them a policy.
A really interesting panel today on how to make agents' life easier. Let's just walk out because I know the next panel is about to start. something that I found really interesting is what you talked about, and what actually also the audience seemed to be quite interested in was how can we provide more insights to agents so they can make better decisions. You talked about, in terms of life insurance, how can they know already the outcome so they don't spend time and convince a customer that is then at the end uninsurable. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit around that, how we can support agents with more insights and what role regulation plays?
I think first it's a partnership, right? One of the things we have to do is we have to understand that if we're trying to support the agent's success in that scenario, and we want them to do something, we've got to make them comfortable with doing that. And so even in a rudimentary level right now, if I can just with some publicly available data give them some insight from a segmentation standpoint about who are the right customers to ask what kinds of questions, I'm going to increase their success. If I increase their success, I increase the likelihood that they do it again. I'm conditioning to them to do that well. In the long run, one of the real drawbacks we're going to run into, or one of the struggles we're going to run into, is trying to be a little bit more predictive about how regulators are going to see the things we want to do into the future. Regulation, by its very nature, is something that tends to be reactive, not proactive, and we're in a business that's very proactive right now, not traditionally, but right now. I learned yesterday that insurance is second in AI adoption and generative AI adoption, so that's a great thing for the industry. But what we've got to figure out how to do is how do we manage the boundaries relative to our capabilities versus what we think the regulators are going to do. And that's going to take a partnership both between the industry and the regulators and between us and our distribution partners. Our capabilities to do these things in terms of being more predictive are far greater than the comfort level that we have with deploying them. I feel like we could probably come very close to predicting what an underwriting outcome on a life insurance policy might be, but we can't do that today, even though it would be better for the agent, it would be better for the insured, it would be faster, it would be lower friction, because we have to do some things that aren't in alignment with regulations, which I get. We're not going to push those boundaries, but it's a great opportunity for us at the end of the day to be better at challenging not only our industry, but the regulators to think more in terms of what is the benefit to the customer in tomorrow's world, not just today's world. And that's going to be a struggle because government tends to be reactive.
No, absolutely get it. I worked with a bunch of regulators during my time in Asia, and it can be really a challenge. Another thing you said that I found quite interesting is the psychology of sales, especially in the life insurance industry. Why is this important?
Well, yeah, one of the things I talked about, and I think it's really important, I could go on and on about sales models, but there's a distinct difference between the process of buying a property and casualty policy and a life policy, and it's simply that, for the most part, the person that's buying a property and casualty policy, if you buy a new car, if you buy a house, you get a mortgage from the bank, they tell you you have to buy insurance. And so when you approach the agent or the outlet, the distribution partner, you know what you want. You have a good idea of that, and that changes the nature of the sales process. For life insurance, a lot of times there's more discovery with regard to what the need is, how do you properly cover the need, how do you think about those things, and that's a different process. The reason I mention that is because as we become more accustomed to the idea of using generative AI to build models that can go further into the sales process, we need to be at a foundational level mindful of the fact that the sales process isn't universally the same, that there are different needs in different situations, and that's a critical thing for us from our perspective.
Steve Shaffer, Homesteaders live company. Really, really great seeing your presentation. You talked about the difficulties about like transforming a culture, transforming an organization to embrace innovation. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more, like people who had not the opportunity to be here today, what is it in a nutshell that makes culture and transformation so important?
Yeah, first of all, it's really important because even though your business model today might be resilient, there's no guarantee that it's going to be relevant to consumers in the future. So we at our company have embraced innovation to kind of move the company forward and be ready for the next 100 years. We've been around 118 years, but we knew that what we do today might not carry us forward as far as we need it to in the future. And a big part of what we did was set really aspirational goals for our company that forced us to not do something different than we've done in the past, get our board buy-in, get our team buy-in, set our incentive plans around achieving those goals and innovating. And then basically lean into it and just make that part of everything we do, is thinking about innovation, planning for the next 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and 5 to 10 years as far as what we're going to do different in the future. And it's worked really well for our organization to kind of transform us from being very non-innovative and to really embrace an innovative culture. And we've got a lot of really good success stories so far, which also celebrating those has helped kind of transform the culture in a big way.
What is something that you found, very surprising that you discovered during the process that, looking back, you did not expect that?
Yeah, the interesting thing was once we were pretty well into the transition of our culture, how the older school folks who'd worked with us for a long time really embraced the successes we were having and really started to embrace innovation and participate actively, which I didn't expect at all. I expect that we would always be dragging them along in our journey to be innovative. And what happened once we started to have some success, they really jumped on board and really embraced it as part of our culture, which has been fun to see.
Isaac, great to have you here. Really enjoyed your panel. It was the panel I looked forward the most here today. I've also covered embedded insurance and alternative forms of distribution in my book, The Future of Insurance, Asia Rising. What are some of the key takeaways for you from the panel discussion today?
Thank you for that, and also thank you for looking forward to it. I hope it was up to your expectations. As far as key takeaways, first off, we had an awesome panel of speakers today, very wide variety of backgrounds, from legal to working at carriers to entrepreneurs doing capital solutions. But I would say some of the key takeaways really are embedded insurance really only exists because it's adding some value, and that value, in my view, is meeting the customer where you are, making insurance, the purchasing process for insurance easier. It's something that no one really looks forward to purchasing, so if you can attach yourself to something else, why not? And it looks like we're still in the early days of it, but I'm seeing a lot of success and excited for the future.
What do you think has really changed in the past years? Because embedded insurance as such is not really new, right? Like many argue that we had travel insurance embedded in booking sites for many, many years. What is it that has really changed in recent years?
Yeah, that's correct. There's always been some things like warranty and travel that have been around really forever. I would say it's the complexity of some of the other products and the evolution of where technology is these days to make it more seamless. I could just speak from auto insurance is definitely very complicated in terms of the rating variables required, the data required, and all that. And now companies like Root are doing that, and we're seeing that with other companies as well. So I think it's really becoming more advanced through the technology and also expanding to reach more lines of business.
Well, Wendi, Philip, really great panel today. Congratulations. Super exciting to hear about all the digitization efforts in commercial and specialty lines. Wendi, you talked a little bit about claims and why it is important to have the digitization in claims. Can you maybe share a little bit more on that and why it is important?
Sure. I think it's important for both the policyholder, the agent, and the carrier. That's what I talked about. It's important because it's really a very critical moment. We, in the carrier side, call it the moment of truth for us. And so allowing policyholders to really initiate and resolve those claims is very important. It's also important on our side because it drives speed and consistency, which is really very crucial in making sure that we're adjusting and paying those claims in a really solid fashion.
Okay, great. Philip, you also talked about being true digital, because a lot of companies claim they are digital, but it's a bit of a digital lipstick on a legacy pig. So what is your view on, or what does it mean to be true digital?
I think the true digital means, first and foremost, being able to collect data and to be able to house the data and be able to manipulate the data and then leverage the data and action it in real time. And then ultimately that also means your user experience, that how that affects the user experience, how that then affects, for example, how you come back with quotes, how bindable the quotes are in real time, and then be able to ultimately make the purchase. So I think it really starts with data to be able to then have the mechanisms to then outline that in a user experience and a flow perspective.
Thanks. And I also see Roy is here. Maybe you want to join me here for a second. You had, and Andrew, we will get to Andrew in a second. Don't worry, I just wanted to hear from you because you were moderating this amazing panel, and I just wanted to know, what were your key takeaways from today's session?
I think there's a couple of key takeaways, right? Exactly what we wrapped up with. A lot of the big things that they're trying to focus on is that change. The people aspect of it is key, right? I think for every get to any program, the prioritization that we talked about with Andrew, it's truly understanding, well, what's the level set? It's the basics. Before we digitize, how do we figure out what the right things we're working on? And everyone wants to talk about use cases and everything. But no, it really comes down to the customer and the commercial space. What's next? Figure out our priorities, figure out our people, and there's some technology follows afterwards. And that's the simplest way to think about it.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Andrew, maybe I come quickly over to you. I think you also talked about the people component and how important the people component is when it comes to digitization. Maybe you can share a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, insurance is still very much a people business, and the core functions of distribution and underwriting are still all in people's, expertise and minds. So it's really a critical first step to understand what those people are doing and how they're doing it and how technology can enable them. I would say that's probably that was a mistake of the last generation of InsurTech, was thinking that technology could replace people. And I think right now the best companies are thinking about how technology can enable people to be better at distribution and better at underwriting, which will typically mean, automating a lot of the tasks that they're doing that are taking them away from those activities. So that's how I see technology enabling people in insurance.
Denise, so great to catch you here. You have been the MC for the PNC track. What have been your favorite takeaways of the day? Key lessons you learned, something that you did not think about before, something new that you learned. That would be great.
I think what's been the best part is that there's been these different kinds of folks on stage. So you have large enterprises, small enterprises, liaising with also InsurTech founders, talking about the same problems and how they may be different and how they find solutions. And I think one of the most interesting things from the day is that there's a technology conference, but a common theme was around empathy throughout the whole day, right? Listening to your customers, listening to your clients, solutioning not just one size fits all, but leveraging technology to really create the solutions that are actually needed in the industry. That's been very interesting.
David and Tony, congratulations. I'm really enjoying myself here at the InsurTech New York Spring Conference. Are you guys happy? I mean, it's an amazing conference. So many people, so many great conversations. What has been your highlight so far, David?
So for me, the biggest highlight is the connectivity. For Tony and I, this conference is really much like a homecoming. We get to see all the startups that participated in our programs in the past, the previous winners of our startup competitions as they grow and develop, and we get to connect them with our network of insurers and brokers.
Yeah, and in addition to the startups, we're really happy to see a lot of the carriers and brokers that we have really good connections with come to our conference, and some of the new stakeholders in the carrier broker group, as well as advisory and investors who come to our community participate. And it's really good to see. One thing I heard, actually several times I heard yesterday, is they said that in this conference, you don't have 10,000 people showing up. We have about almost 1,000. But you actually come here and people are ready to do business. And so stuff actually happens in this conference. And that was really great to hear, because we really try to bring people who are interested, not just to learn about startups and learn about what's going on in innovation, but they're really ready to actually take action. And so I think that was really great to see, and that's really been the highlight, is like hearing people give us feedback that they're able to actually make really great connections that could actually lead them to do something.
Ramsey, this was an incredible panel. Group life. I actually spent most of my career working for Generali in the group business, so that is true. And something that really resonated with me that you mentioned, that today hardly anyone works for the same company anymore for 20 years, and that is something that we need to address. Maybe just stand here for a second. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit why this is important to take into consideration that work life looks different today than it used to?
So work life looks very different today. People move around, but people need those same types of coverage over the course of their lifetime. So the question becomes, what are the things we can do to make that possible? Well, part of it, frankly, is coming up with simpler solutions that are portable for a variety of reasons. It may just be portable in terms of the platform that somebody is on, or it may just simply be risk that could be easily ported between different carriers over time. So I've always been an advocate for the simplest possible solutions with respect to insurance products, precisely because that's risk that can be replaced and can be offered in the broadest possible way across the entire industry.
No, thank you for that. There's always so much to talk about, and just as the panel was ending, you brought up the topic of cloud platforms, and why is this important?
So it's interesting. Every financial services company that I touch, right, either directly or indirectly, or with which I work or serve, is going through this sort of tension between, do we stick with the systems we have in place that are largely mainframe based, use legacy programming languages such as COBOL, or do we move on to cloud-based solutions? And I think that generally speaking, the answer over time seems to be the cloud, but the process of moving over is less easy than one might think. And there's a lot of reasons why it's important. For one thing, just finding resources to maintain legacy systems becomes harder and harder, because young programmers aren't learning COBOL, they're learning new languages. The other piece that's very important is around issues like cybersecurity. So in order to sort of manage cybersecurity, you have to be able to update systems on a continuous basis, and that's more easily done in a cloud context. So this is a tension that exists across the banking industry, across the insurance industry. I'm a proponent of moving to cloud-based solutions. Now, I'm not a technologist, but I've spent enough time being sort of exposed to the pros and cons that I think that's the right direction to go.
No, I absolutely agree. And I wrote in my book, The Future of Insurance, Asia Rising, about Ping An. And Ping An is today the second largest insurer in the world. Yeah. And I think one of their success stories really is that they moved the entire operation into the cloud already in 2006, right? And I think there are very few organizations of that size who have managed that for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. Any other key takeaways from the panel today?
I think the main thing for me is that I think the future is in the workplace. I think that so many of the goods and services that we need are best offered in the workplace for a few reasons. One is trust exists in the workplace. So trust saves you time. It also, and by trust I mean trust in the vendors that are available to you, trust in their ability to provide you a service, trust that you're being given a good price. Once all those service providers have gone through the screen, I'll call it even a fiduciary or quasi-fiduciary screen of an employer, you can feel comfortable that the service you're getting is probably of a relatively high standard. And importantly, it means you can spend more time actually focusing on your day-to-day work. So for me, it's super, super important. And then the last piece that I'll add, and I'd mentioned this, is that just because human capital is expensive, for brokers, advisors, et cetera, their time is limited, their time is valuable, so they have to focus on larger clients. That's just logical. But the reality is we have an entire nation of individuals that actually need the kinds of protection and services that we're talking about. And the only way you're going to be able to do that at scale, in my view, is through nexus points such as the workplace.
Really quick, but I could not resist, not talking for you for a second, but we have the CEO panel coming up. Just a quick recap of this amazing panel. What were your key takeaways for today?
Key takeaways were that core system upgrades are super hard, that we had some really, really great people that were talking about difficulties and challenges, but also benefits of being willing to go through, endure the pain of ripping out 40 and 30-year-old systems and implement something new. Also talking about how we innovate while you do a major core system upgrade, because it's super hard. Everybody wants to stop doing anything. We had a really good discussion about decision fatigue, which I didn't even think about until we talked about it, about executives getting exhausted during upgrade projects with having to make decisions all the time, and really had a good, I thought just a good outcome of encouraging folks to learn to set their expectations before they move into big projects in insurance, so that they can cut their losses. If something's not working, being willing to accept it when the losses are small. So I think if I had to hit the top 5 bullet points, that would probably be it.